And I'm back at it, recording.
Don't fuck it up. I'm kidding.
This is already recorded, by the way, so I have
Oh,
clear
shit.
evidence of you swearing at me, so wow, how dare you.
I'm not that mean.
Okay, and the previous recording is converting right now, and I guess I can probably, I'm not sure if I'll merge them or I'll just make it part 1, part 2, but either way, it will be up today. I'll still do it.
easier
I've
for you.
already allowed share screen, so y'all should be good.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure.
Then Yarak, you can. Okay, now before we actually get back to everything else, does everyone understand the steps we did so far? Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's fantastic. What you might want to do is, because I personally forgot pretty much everything, do make a note of having to go to analyze descriptive statistic, cross tabulate and all that, or cross tabs and all that stuff. Because at one point you will forget which one it is. For example, with transform, you want to always go with recode into different variables rather than recode into same variables. So like if you want to, remember it in 2 months time when we're writing our dissertations, whoever chooses to write a dissertation, then I do recommend doing that because that will probably come in helpful. Other than this,
It's
everything
all
will
in the
probably be,
PDF though,
yeah.
Casper. If
Yeah,
you
but
guys look at the lecture PDF, it's all there.
it's also when it comes to the slides that he's giving, he actually does give like quick explanation of like this, unless this is what you mean by PDF.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna share screen again. Okay, can you guys all see my screen? Okay, so now we're gonna go into the mean and the standard deviation and all that. So just so I know how detailed I have to explain, who here understood what mean and standard deviation are?
When I was right with him up until after the mean. So I understand what the mean, those different averages were, but once he got to those two, I just switched off and started crying on the floor. But
Okay.
I don't know. Do we have to understand the maths?
No.
Okay. If you're going to do
not.
that again, I'm just going to go and drink
you
a
don't
bottle
have
of wine.
to. You don't have to understand the maths unless you'll be writing this station using SPSS a lot. But it's good to understand the meaning of the words themselves and what do they really convey as a message. But everything else is done by SPSS, so you don't need to know any sort of I don't know, any writing sort of a bit. You will not sit there with a calculator and punch things down. So don't worry about that. But to understand what are they and what do they mean, what does the mean? Ooh, then I say yes, you probably do. You do need to understand that.
I would very much like to know what they mean and what they're like for, but I don't want to see any formulas or I'll cry.
Okay, no worries. I'll explain without showing you any formulas.
Thank you, Yara.
Okay, so first off, the mode. So I'm going to go through mode, median, and mean. So the mode is literally just the most frequent number in your data set. Okay, just as simple as that. The median is literally the number in the middle. So if you have 7 numbers, your median would be the 4th. Okay, and if you have an even number, so if you have 6, your median would be number 3 and 4 divided by 2. Okay, that's it. The mean is, and it's the average. I don't know why they call it the mean when it's literally just the average, but that's it, just the sum of all your numbers divided by the number of numbers that you have. So that's what the mean is. Does everyone get it up until now? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe it's a silly one, but what if in the data set there isn't like a frequent number? What's the mode? if
You-
every
you
number
still-
is different.
you still get a mode. So yes, you can have plenty of different answers. So you can have people all around answering everything, but the mode is gonna be the middle sort of a thing that sort of happens. So for example, you can have 20 people answering yes, I don't know, I like juice, 21 people saying no, I don't like juice, and 23, which is again sort of similar, saying I don't feel neither. You're gonna want to go with the one that's more frequent, which would be the 23 one, which would be like people that are don't really care. So there's always gonna be this sort of like a smaller variation. If not, then I think, and I might be wrong, you choose kind of in between of them. Am I right, Yara?
I have no clue.
No, the mode is still. I think as far as I'm aware, if you have, for example, answers. Okay, let's go with numbers because that's, I suppose, easier. You have answers of 2 people answering 1-1, and 3 people answering. Oh God, that's so complicated in a
Casper,
weird way. if
for
I
many
explain it
times,
like
if there is no like there's no difference, it's that you can say there's no mode.
Oh, okay.
that. Yeah, I guess that would work. But then again, in our thing, if you're gonna have hundreds of people, you're most likely gonna get the most common answer.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then yeah. But the mode is not relevant
Exactly.
Yeah.
really to you. That's the best part, though. You don't have to care for mode at all. We're doing social sciences, so the most common answer is absolutely useless. If we were doing maths, sure, I get it. But we don't care. We are not mathematicians, and we suck at maths.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that.
We have to care for. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think.
Okay, any other questions, or shall I move on to standard deviation? Okay,
I have a
So-
question.
yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So how would you interpret the mean, mode, and everything? Like, because that's what we're gonna have for our exam, right? We're
Right.
gonna have to analyze something that's already in a table, and if
Yeah.
we have that, like, yeah, basically, what like sentence would we have to say? Because I'm kind of want to like just learn the sentences by heart and then adapt it for the
Okay.
evaluation.
So really, usually, at least as far as I think, you don't really need to mention the mode or the median in your research because it doesn't really tell you anything. I mean, the mode can tell you that if for instance, you notice that most people answered yes, it might be interesting to mention and say, oh, it looks like the majority of our respondents answered yes, so that's a good thing for us. So you can analyze it that way. But the most I think, I'm not sure, but the most interesting thing for our paper is the mean, which is the average, the mean and the standard deviation. So basically you'd phrase it in a way that it seems like the average answer of respondents was, I don't know, like 48 over, let's say it's over 50 and the average is 48, which depending on what your data means, it's either a good thing or a bad thing. So, oh, it seems like the average is very high, which is a positive thing for our research, or vice versa. And so that's basically how you would translate it if you were to analyze it. And I'll get into standard deviation and how you would phrase that in a second.
So if I might just quickly say,
Okay, thank you.
When you think of mean, just think of an average. That's it. That's it. That's the main sort of a bit of it. That's all you have to remember about it. Standard deviation goes into it, and then when you talk about it, depending on standard deviation, you might change the way you speak. But Yara will go in a second, so that will make more sense. But do remember that your average is great, and that's fantastic, but the standard deviation might explain why your average is sort of irrelevant.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions, or should I explain standard deviation now? Okay, just before I explain it, in case I do a shitty job at explaining it, and then Casper also does a shitty job at explaining it, LinkedIn Learning has so many videos on standard deviation. I think I watched like 5 last night that explain it really well. So in case you get out of this and are like, I have no clue what they were talking about, you can go ahead and check LinkedIn Learning because it really explains it in a super simple way.
You should get Netflix or
Okay.
something, Yara.
What?
You should get Netflix or something. There's other things to watch.
I was preparing trying to help you guys.
Watch Friends or something, right?
Oh, don't worry, I watched Friends this morning. Okay, so the standard deviation in the simplest, I'm not, Casper, should I explain the formula or should I just skip it?
Just skip the formula. Don't jump into it because the formula is gonna just mess everyone's brains up. It messed up my brain up until I understood the
Yeah.
actual meaning of it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this is easy peasy.
Yeah. Okay. So in very simple terms, the standard deviation is what we need to figure out how spread out our data is. Okay, so that's literally all it is. You have a set of data, you want to know if they're all concentrated or if they're spread out. The standard deviation is what will allow you to figure that out. Does that make sense?
So it's finding, it helps you find out if your data is like tightly grouped together or if it's spread out.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is.
Yara, can you let me share my screen? I'm going to show something that kind of helped me
Yes.
out understanding a little bit better.
Of course.
And it
Go
also
ahead.
puts into context what Martin did in regards to the explanation of all these random graph things and like these wave things and so on, which were, to me at that point, were an absolute mess. But now I look at it and it makes sense. So I'm gonna go into drawing. I have no idea how they do blackboards and everything else, but I'm gonna go with simple this, right? So, like Lisa said at one point, what if there is no average answer, right? So if you don't have this main answer that constantly repeats. Assuming you have an answer, how many people like wearing shoes? Okay, from 1 to 5, how much you like wearing shoes? And you got 5 answers, so you go with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Now, let's say it's a scale, it's sort of like this. Let's put it into a histogram, right? Because that's what he did when it comes to this wave thing. And so, for example, you've got this many people, which is X number, doesn't matter, answering, you know, I like shoes. These many people saying they're fine. Then again, you know, 3 sort of answer would be again sort of like fine. Then this one would be sort of higher. And this one would be sort of the same as 1, right? Now, what you see is every single one of them is average. It's essentially the same sort of a thing. They don't go, you know, an extreme and very low. They're pretty much the same, right? So when we get that graph sort of a thing, it will try to go into the normal thing, which will go like this, right? And that's the normal sort of a graph, the one that he showed us. Now we can see that our, you know, numbers, the histogram doesn't fit into this. If it did, it would look sort of like, well, if I do that, the answers would look sort of like this. Okay, and then falling down again. Sort of a thing, right? Right? So they go up and then rise down again. Okay, that is basically how this standard graph, which he showed us, would make it fit. Now, what standard deviation does, to put it into context, is show you how like separated they are. So, well, basically how different from each other they are. So in here, the standard deviation is going to be high because all these answers are sort of on the same level. So it's going to be pretty much like, let's say the answer could be, you know, so 1, 2, 3, it could be like 3.5, I'm just guessing, or 4.5, all right? Because the answer could be any. So your mean, yes, is going to be like 3.2, let's say, I don't know, because that's the average answer out of all of them. But it doesn't matter because your standard deviation is high, meaning that, yeah, the mean is this, but the answers are all over the place. All right, that means that's what standard deviation, high standard deviation means. You want to have as little standard deviation as possible because then your mean actually means something. If you're, and in here, for example, your standard deviation is going to be lower because they don't jump as much. The answers are very clearly accumulated over here, right? This whole bit is your main bit. So standard deviation could be like 1. And that means that it's going to be going between basically one question, right? Between 1. So I'm going to clear this again. So if you have standard deviation of 1.2 and your mean is 3.5, right? That means that the answers, the sort of like most possible answers could be 2.7 or 4.7. And that's like your, because you add the standard deviation, right? So it could be between a little bit less than the mean, a little bit more. It's somewhere in there, right? Does everyone get it? Okay, Lisa doesn't seem to get it at all. She's like,
Yeah,
No.
Lisa doesn't seem to get it. Her face is so
I'm so
confused.
jealous on you guys that you understand the logic behind it, because
okay, I'm gonna do
sometimes I
this
think
again.
To be honest,
that
to
my
be
brain
honest, I
not
thought it
make
was the
sense.
opposite. Since
You-
they didn't vary a lot between each other, I was like, yeah, the standard variation is okay.
So no, that's the
I don't
thing.
know.
If a standard
confused.
deviation, if they don't, so basically over here, right? So you've got this graph thing. I'm gonna undo it though, because it's completely pointless. This graph, by the way, is complete utter bullshit. We're gonna talk about it in our next lecture, by the way. It's gonna be the whole chi-test and t-test.
Yeah.
And those are the graphs, and this is what he's gonna talk about, and that's absolute bullshit. That's insane. But for now, all you have to know is that your mean would be somewhere here, meaning your average, right? Because let's say this is equal as this. These two are both equal, right? This is as well the same as this. And this one is just the highest of them, which is like the exact average, right? The exact in the middle is perfectly the same, right? So your standard deviation is gonna mean basically how different they are from each other, all right? So how important your mean is, how valuable it is for you, really. The lower standard deviation means that the less you will jump to the sides. Now it's less important in, well, it's not less important, it's less visible in answers like these. But if you had 100 answers, meaning how much do you spend for grocery, and you've got a person number one saying £1, £2, £3, up to £100, yeah, that means that, and your average is £50, let's say, right? Which makes sense. You know, people spend exactly 50, but turns out it's not because people have been, some people have been saying 1, some people have been saying 100. Everyone's been saying 50. Then your standard deviation is going to be very, very low, because everyone's on that 50. Everyone's spending that 50. If you have plenty of people spending just £1 and plenty of people spending £100, plenty spending 70, 20, 50, 40, then your standard deviation is high, because they're all over the place. So I don't know, maybe they're spending 30, maybe they're spending 60, maybe they're 70. The standard deviation being higher means that you basically have lots of sort of things to choose from, because your answer isn't, your average isn't that accurate. It doesn't represent everyone. Okay.
Yeah, if I can interrupt,
Yeah, go on.
I'm gonna show you guys how to do it on SPSS now, and it'll give you a real example, so you guys will understand it a bit more once you actually see it and you have an actual example on front of
I'll
us.
actually, you know what? I'm gonna let you share the screen right now, and you could just jump.
So the more different the answers between each other, the higher the standard variation, right?
Yes. 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 That's pretty much it. And
Wait, I thought it was the lower. I thought that lower standard deviation was better.
yeah, it is better because okay, so when you look at your mean, your average answer, yeah, you want to be able to grab some data from it. You say, you know, most people say they like I did in the last thing, they like owls. And you want this to be true, right? When you present it to someone or when you write about it, you want this to be true. So you say, yes, the most of them say that. That's why lower standard deviation means that, yes, this is what most people say. Most people actually say that they like owls. It's not just your average because it's in between of all the answers. It's an average because this is actually what most people have been answering. Okay.
I guess that if the standard variation is low, it's easier to interpret the data, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's the goal of standard deviation, really.
Because we have, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because everything is really tight together. So all the answers are together, so it makes sense. High standard deviation, the answers are everywhere. So it's kind of like, what do I say? They like the owls, or like, are they, 20 people are fine, 20 people are saying they don't like them, 20 people are saying they love them, 20 people saying they like them. So in between is like, yeah, we like them. But in reality, nobody says we kind of like them. It's just 20 people kind of like them. They're either on extreme or on low. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if you put it in a marketing context, when you're doing a research, you kind of want to be able to tell the client, yeah, it looks like most people have this trend, so it is good for us to do this product. So generally, if you're doing a marketing research for like businesses, it would be better to have a smaller standard deviation, because it will actually show the client that we're on the right track. Most people do agree with this. So it is a good idea to launch this product. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I had asked a question in the chat box to ask if a high or low standard deviation, it can be a good or bad thing, right? But it just depends on data on the context that you're working with.
Yeah, exactly. I think it very much depends on your context. I mean, it depends if what you're looking for is a huge difference between what people like and don't like, then a bigger standard deviation is what you want. But if what you're looking for is people to have a lot of things in common, then what you want is a small standard deviation.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen so I can show you guys how we can get a standard deviation on SPSS, and then we'll go through the example and you'll see what it actually means and how you can analyze it and come up with like the different sentences for the paper. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna do the overall online grocery shopping and the usefulness. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do question 4.1 and 4.2. So, oh shit. Okay, we're gonna go into analyze. Okay, I'm gonna do it slowly so that everyone can go through each step with me. And we're gonna go into, I think, descriptive statistics and then descriptives. Okay, and we're gonna put both questions. So question 4 and question 4. Okay. Let me see if we're actually supposed. Okay, here we're not supposed to put anything. You can always check these, by the way, like the options and the small things to see if there's any extra thing that you'd like to have. But I think we didn't do anything. So you just put them in your variables, question 4.1 and 4.2, and you just click OK. And then you get this table. So this is.
Can't see the table.
What can? Why?
Don't know. Still see the main variable view. I can't see the table. For you at least.
Hang on, I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna start sharing again. Can you see my table?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the table. Now, before we actually go into analyzing, we have to discuss the second time where you would need to recode, and this is it. And Martin explained it, but he didn't explain it very well. So I'm gonna explain why you need to recode here. So if you go into our questionnaire, which I'm gonna open right now, you'll notice that for those two questions, they're scaled differently. So just 1 second, because my questionnaire is taking a while to open.
The thing is that the two questions have totally opposite scales. In one question, one is good. In the second question, one is bad.
Yeah, that's
100%. So that's exactly what it is. So the first question, it goes from very easy to not easy. And the other one is not useful to extremely useful. So in order to actually be able to compare them, you need to have them in the same order. So this is another time you'd have to recode. It's when you have different questions that you want to compare to each other, but the scale is not the same. So recoding is essential in that case. What screen do you guys see now on my screen?
Output file.
Still the same thing that we see before, I guess.
The table?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna go into, again, transform, and we're gonna go into recode into different variables because we need to recode one of these questions. Okay. And then we're gonna choose the question. So I'm gonna choose 4.1. You can choose whichever one you want, but I'm gonna choose 4.1 because I would prefer having the scale be from negative to positive. But if you prefer the other way around, then you can recode the second question. Okay, so hang on, I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna put, is that it? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna name it use. I'm not gonna label it, I don't want to. And we're gonna go into old and new values again. Okay, so here we basically just have to switch them around. So 1 becomes 7, and so forth. So I'm gonna do it. And so here, by the way, Martin explained a different way to do it. Casper, I don't know if you remember, but the other one is faster, but I find this one easier, so I'm just going to stick to this one.
The other one makes it look like it's a mathematical equation again, and makes 100%, you look stressed out that you might have made a mistake. This one is just repeating the previous step, but other way around.
Yeah.
The only thing is, number one, what I do is delete the variables that the new values that you added before.
Yeah.
That's number one sort of thing. Yeah, remove these because they're not important to you anymore, and then you can go jumping back to it.
Yeah.
I was about to ask if the old values or the old things that we did before, they're gonna change what we did before.
No. So once you deleted if you delete this, that's it, done. Once you created the previous one, the previous values and previous everything,
it's done.
It's created.
Yeah.
That's it, done. It's a new variable. It's in your graph, not graph, in your sort of a thing. Done. It's there.
Okay. So okay. Just to know if I was about to mess up.
No, don't worry.
Something.
Yeah,
don't worry.
I did the exact same thing and I kept checking because I was stressed. I just deleted the whole thing I did before. So it makes sense.
Okay, so we're gonna do it. 1 becomes 7. Always make sure to add it once you change the value. Otherwise it gets messed up. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and I just always double check that I got all the numbers right. And then you click continue. And then you click OK.
Yara, just a second. Could you please wait for us to finish?
Of course. Take your time.
And also, again, you can change the name and the label to whatever you want, so it's simpler for you.
Yeah. Okay, is everyone done? Did you finish or not yet?
I'm done.
Okay, perfect. So now we're just gonna want to get the table again with this new data set that we created. So we're just gonna do it again. We're gonna go into analyze, descriptive statistics, descriptives, and this time you're gonna want to make sure you have the new data set instead of the other one. So you'll remove the first one and you'll add the new one. And I usually just do them, rearrange them to make sure it's the same way. That's just a me thing. And then you click OK again. So you have the one of the variables you have is the new one, and the other one is still the same because we didn't recode it. Okay, and you click on OK. And now we have a new table. And you'll notice that the mean changed. So in the previous table, the mean for the first question was 3. Now it's 5, which makes complete sense because you just reversed them. So the 3 became a 5.
Sorry, could you please repeat the procedure again, starting from analyze and descriptive statistics?
Of course. So you go into analyze.
Just a second, I will delete
descriptive statistics. Descriptives.
Wait, yeah. Just wait a second. Give her a second to load up as well.
Okay, descriptives.
Okay, and it'll open the small window for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have 2 variables right now. It's the 2 questions that we originally had.
Yes.
You want to remove the one that we just recoded.
Which is question 4.1, right?
Yes. You remove that one, and then you add the one that we just recoded.
Just a second.
Take your time, don't worry.
How do I add the new one?
You scroll down so that you can see it, and then you click on it and you put it into the variables.
Do you mean the new one, which is called Asian? No.
No, the one
No.
we just recoded. What did you call it? I called it use.
Yes, I called it the same, but I cannot find it.
Oh.
Could it be possible that the changes were not saved?
With SPSS, everything is possible.
Yeah.
I'm really afraid that it wasn't saved, and that is why I cannot find it. Okay, I'll probably need to go one step back to repeat all the procedure.
Yeah, go one step back
and
recode it if you can.
Sure, no problem. Just, I understood my mistake. Somehow I didn't save the changes, but that's fine. Please continue and I will follow you. Thank you.
Are you sure?
I've got one question. Yara, I've got one question to you.
Go ahead.
You see how that's something that kind of got me confused. You see how variable now use is supposed to be a nominal if you go back into the variable view overall. So if you go into the previous screen, the main screen, I don't know if you did, I can't see it. See, it changes itself from a scale. It changes itself from a scale to a nominal. Do you have an idea whether we need to change it back to a scale? It would make sense because it's the same thing, it's just different. And if we don't, does it change anything that we do with it later?
You're right. I think it does make sense to change it back to a scale, because that's what it was before.
Right.
I think it might. So it clearly doesn't change it for this. It clearly doesn't change it for the mean and standard deviation because it stays the same.
They will be the same regardless. But if we continue doing, graphs and all the other things, I think it might have some sort of an impact on it.
It might, yeah. I think it's a bit. I mean, make sure to ask Martin in the seminar.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
It's an interesting question, but I'm guessing the answer is yeah. We should probably change it to scale. But I don't know why he didn't mention it.
That's the thing. I don't remember him saying that, but I think it's quite an important bit.
Yeah, no, he definitely didn't say anything about it. I don't remember. So make sure to ask.
Yara, sorry again. Could you please remind me, how do I recode the question from 1 to 7?
Course. Of course. So you go into transform. Recode into different variables.
Transform. Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you choose the question 4.1 and you put it. So make sure there's nothing else in your variable first. In the small variable box. And you put the question 4.1 into it.
Yes.
And then name it use or whatever you want to name it.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And don't forget to click change once you do it.
But you know what's interesting? Because now I click on it and the values that I changed appear on my screen like 1 to 7, 2 to 6. And I click continue.
Yeah.
But
I think what happened is you probably didn't click change the first time because the first time we did it with Martin, I did the recoding, but I didn't click on change. So instead of actually creating a new data set, it replaced the data set that was already existent. So that's probably what happened with you. Because if you don't click change, it just doesn't create the new data set. So always make sure as soon as you write the name and the label, click change to actually have SPSS executed.
Okay, and now I want to check if now it works, if the use appears. So now I click Second. So to create again the table, to compare the variables have changed, I put analyze.
Yes.
Analyze. Descriptive statistics.
Yes. Descriptives.
Descriptives. Okay. So Q4 and Q4 appear again when I click reset, right? Should I reset?
Yes. You don't have to reset. I mean, you can if you want. Sure, sure. Reset.
Set. And I add Q4. Q4. I don't remember. Q4 1 or Q4 2?
Q4 2, because Q4 1 is the one we just recoded. So you
Yeah.
put in Q4.2 and you put in the new variable that we have, which is supposed to be.
And
used.
again,
Does it show up?
surprise. No.
What?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't understand. It is definitely wrong. I may missed something. I might miss something. I don't know. But it doesn't appear again, even though I did all the procedure again. Okay. I'll do this afterwards. Sorry, guys. Don't want to take your time.
Okay, if you want, redo it later and just text me while you're doing it. And we can go through it step by step to make sure that it actually works.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, of course. Okay, so now can you guys see my table with the two different questions and the mean and the standard deviation? Yes, okay. So what does this mean? So first of all, both of our questions now, they're scaled in a way where it's negative to positive. So from very difficult to use to very easy to use, and from not at all useful to extremely useful. So you'll notice that the mean, which is the average, I'm just going to call it average because it'll make it easier for everyone to understand. The average for both is relatively high. So it seems like our average is that people find it easy to use and useful. Okay, so that's what the mean is telling us. Now, what does the standard deviation tell us? So as you guys can see, both of them have a relatively small standard deviation. It's 1.4 and 1.5. That means, actually, what does that mean? I want to see if you guys understood what Casper was talking about before. Does anyone know what that means?
Let me.
Yeah,
Me,
please go
teacher.
ahead.
So does that mean that the sort of outlying results only go as far from that average as 1.38 or 1.48?
On both sides, you mean, from the average?
Yeah,
yes.
So from that 5, the other results, the furthest ones are that number away.
It's
so
not
the average is 5, so the standard deviation is 1.38. So that means that the furthest one away is either 6.38 or 3.62.
Okay, so yes and no. So you got the general idea right, but it's not actually the furthest point. So when you're taking only one standard deviation away, it's usually 68% of your respondents. So that would translate to 68% of our answers are between 3.7 and 6.4. So it's not the furthest points, but it's 68% of our answers are between that area. And because our standard deviation is small, that means that actually all of our data is quite condensed, right?
Yeah.
Does everyone get that?
Where does the 68% come from?
Oh, that's just that's math.
Mathematical equation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
just-
gonna worry about it, but
I think if you want to know why it's that way, you can look at LinkedIn
I-
Learning because
yeah.
Martin didn't explain it. It's just what they usually say. So at 1 standard deviation, it's 68%, 2 standard deviation is 95%, and then 3 standard deviation is 99%. There's math behind all of it. But you just need to know what the percentage is. You don't need at all to get into the math of
Okay, so 68% of the results are within 1.4 of the average.
standard deviation from the mean.
Guys,
Yes.
I can see the percentages. Where are they?
Oh, these are just, you just need to remember them. That's it.
Yeah.
The
They're from the
68%.
slides.
Yeah.
They're from the slides. It's just, you just need to know that one standard
Okay, now,
deviation
now I
is
recall
68.
it.
Yeah.
But I don't think you have to worry about it again. Again, if you just remember that majority of your answers are going to be within that small bit of the standard deviation, that means that your answers are, you know, again, what I mentioned, small deviation, good, because they're all together. Big standard deviation, bad, unless you want a lot of variable answers everywhere. Then I guess good too.
our case,
you measure.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you measure if the standard deviation is high or low? Here, like you have to compare the two we have here.
Yes, so the standard deviation is gonna be well, something that you can count. There is a whole formula for it, but you don't have to measure any standard deviations thing yourself. It will be done for you by the SPSS. All you have to do is to go to the descriptive statistics and follow the process of, you know, comparing them together. Sort of thing. The question, and then you get an average of the question, standard deviation of the question, and then you can assume, okay, my answers go, you know, they're from 1 to 7, so 1.3 is quite a lot because it's between 1.3 of an answer sort of thing either way. So okay, that's fine, then it's my average is quite good. If I have 7 answers, my standard deviation is 3. Well, that's shit, because that means people could have answered any sort of, like, you know, 3 answers on this side or 3 answers on this side between my mean. So yeah, there's a whole mathematical term for it, but yeah, just remember this bit. That's the most important.
I'm just gonna go a bit further and explain what this means for us in our case. So our standard, I'm gonna take the first question, which is online grocery shopping is very difficult to use or very easy to use. So our standard deviation is 1.4 approximately. So that means that the majority, 68% of our respondents answered this in the scale. Their answer was between 3 Jesus, I hate math. I'm joking, I love math. It's between 3.6 something and 6.4. And this is good for us because we don't want the extreme of very difficult to use. So the majority answered that it's relatively easy to use. So that is very good for us in this case. Does that make sense, one? Great. Yay, very happy about that. Okay, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I need to explain about standard deviation. But I think that's it. Does everyone get it? If you have any questions about standard deviation, now is the time to ask them.
Or anything else, really.
No, there's still a few things for SPSS.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if you have any...
standard deviation,
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you guys if will we have enough time to go through tomorrow's seminar task today to see what are we supposed to do and to take maybe the first 2 or 3 steps, or you don't have a lot of time?
It's up to you guys. I have no plans until like 9 p.m. At 9 p.m. I just want to watch The Bachelorette. So until then, I can stay online and go through whatever you guys want to go through.
Yeah, I would be happy if you want to spend a little bit more time doing this, because I still need some practice. if I will not do it today, tomorrow it will be more difficult for me.
I don't mind
Okay.
going it through it as well. That'll be fine. If you want to
I-
watch Bachelorette or eat or anything else that humans do at this time.
I'm happy to keep my Zoom on. I don't have a work meeting until 9 p.m. Same as Yara. So feel
Okay,
free.
so whoever wants to stay on and go through the seminar with us, they can. Whoever wants to leave because they don't want to or they have any other plans, they can. So cool. Okay, any questions about standard deviation or anything else that we went through so far?
I just want to make sure I clarify, like I understood like standard deviation. So basically standard deviation is just reflecting like the distance of like your results. The smaller it is, that means the more condensed it is. The bigger the number is, it's more further spread out. And I wonder, I forgot in terms of the percentage, I remember there in statistics, there's a table based on like the 98 percentile, 68 reflects on like what that standard deviation is. And then when you use the mean, I remember you can do like add the standard deviation or subtract the standard deviation to understand like what's the exact
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
good.
it.
I'm glad I understood. Thank you.
The only difference is when you look at it, because you said how varied your results are. Yes,
Mhm.
but it's how varied from the mean, because it's important from your average.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not just overall. It's when you look at your mean, how closely to the mean they are.
Okay.
So yeah,
Got it.
that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Anything else? Anyone else? Or I'm going to be really upset if you guys don't understand standard deviation after today. So if there's any question, even if you think it's dumb, I want to make sure everyone got it.
Just have in mind, she's the one that brought chocolates into our seminar, so you don't want to get onto her bad side. So yeah, no chocolates for you.
This time we need to bring chocolates to you, Yara.
Oh my God, stop. I'm getting so fat. Please don't get me chocolate.
But still,
Okay.
you both guys are understanding like most of it, and I'm still feeling far behind of it. But I really hope the practicing is the key. So as much as you practice,
Yeah.
the most you practice, the better you get it. So yeah, I just need to practice. But thank you for finding time and sharing your knowledge and your experience with us.
Of course, it's a pleasure.
And I think both
After
Yara.
last week's lecture.
Yeah. Go on.
Sorry.
No, go on.
After last week's lecture, I hated SPSS and didn't think I'd ever understand it. And then I practiced it on like Sunday night and I realized how easy it was. I think it was just not that well explained.
Yeah.
Like you guys tonight, you're doing a great job. Like this is so much clearer now. I absolutely understand what standard deviation is and I feel very clever, but I think you're right, Anna. It's practice.
It all is.
Yay.
And having it well explained.
And also understanding the terms. And what I wanted to say is that I think because we might be doing it for a few future months, especially if someone's writing a deviation, I think if you struggle, I just hit up anyone else in this group. I guess I bet Yara will be happy to help you whenever. I know
Definitely,
I will.
definitely.
And now Ethan clearly seems to be understanding it too, so he will be glad to help you too. Basically, I think the main goal of this whole thing right now is to help each other out. And if we don't understand each other, we're there for each other, right? We're so far away when it comes to stupid online things, but I guess it kind of helps because we can actually do this sort of a thing whenever.
Thank you, guys. I just love how supportive you are.
Yeah, it's nice. We're a community.
Yeah. We are so
We're
far
all
away,
in this
but
together.
united. Yeah. Like every single
FPS for
bloody
the
ad.
people.
Yeah. Okay, continue, Yara, because I want to get to the part when you make numerous questions into one question. That's the part that interests me.
Yeah. Okay, so first, I think I can't remember who it was, but someone asked So this is what we're gonna do now to explain the graphs part again. I don't know if that person is watching right now, but I remember someone texted on the Facebook group saying, can someone explain the graphs again later, because I didn't get it. So this is what we're gonna do now. Is there something in the chat? There it is. I don't know what it is. Okay, so what do you guys see on my screen right now? Is it still the table?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, it was you. It was Vartika. Okay, great. So now you're gonna see what it is. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna share again so that you guys can see this. Okay, so in order to get charts, there you can have basically whatever chart you want by going to graphs. So you get to, you get to graphs and you go into chart builder. Okay. And then you get the small window, blah, blah, blah. You just click OK. And then you get this very nice window that lets you basically customize the graph that you want. So you can choose, as you can see here, you can choose from whatever graph, literally anything you have in mind. You have all these templates that you can use from. So the one that Martin did in class was this one, the second one in the bars, and you just drag it to here. And then you have what it's going to look like. So next, you're going to want to decide what you want on your x-axis and what you want on your y-axis. So in his example, he compared gender with rating how important stuff is to you. So that's what I'm going to do. So so you go here into all your questions and you go to the one that's for gender, which is 7.1, and you drag it onto your x-axis. So now you have male and female in your graph. And then for the other axis, we're going to use several questions. We're going to put them all into one. It's doable. You can do that. So we're going to choose all the questions that fall under 3. So 3.5, 3.1 to 3.5. You click on all of them and then you drag them to here. You make sure that there's the little plus sign. Okay. And then you drag them and you just click OK. It's telling you that it's going to summarize the data, blah, blah, blah. And then you have your little chart right here. And you click OK. Does everyone have the chart right now in front of them?
Just a second, please.
Yes, take your time.
You know how I take a question out?
How do you take a question out?
Yeah, I accidentally put in 3.1 twice.
Okay, just drag it. I think you can just drag it out again.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, and what's next? I dragged all the questions.
You drag all the questions into the other axis.
Yes, and how did the colorful chart appear? Oh, okay, I have it too. Yes.
Exactly, okay. Does everyone else have it as well? Yep, okay, great. So we're just gonna click on okay. It's processing. And do you guys not see my screen?
We see the variable view still, not the output.
Oh, it's so annoying. I don't know why this keeps happening. Okay. Stop share. Share. Do you guys see the table now? Yay. Okay. So that's it. That's how you create whatever chart that you want. So this basically shows you for each question what the people scored depending on their gender. Yeah.
Yeah, I clicked OK, but I did not get the output table. I don't know what happened. It disappeared, everything.
Did you
Oh.
check onto a different window, the output window,
Yeah,
which you had open with descriptives before?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
just
I had the exact same thing. Just 2 seconds. I was like, where did it go? And then I had to open it. I was like, okay, well, fine. Okay, good.
Thank you very much, Yara. It's clear now.
Great. Okay.
Yara,
So
does
that's
it
for whenever you, sorry, yeah.
on your output in your output file, just before the demographics chart, does it appear like a long code?
Yes, you're gonna have all the code, which means what the SPSS did to
Exactly.
make it into this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so whenever you want to create any, so we're obviously we don't need all of this for the assignment, but for later on in your dissertation, if you're working on SPSS, you can create any chart you want using this function.
Now, also remember that if you double click it now, Yara.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Right, double click, which is the same thing we used to do back in the other things. You double click that, it shows you a new thing, and then you can click. Is it double click? I swear to God, it is, right? Yeah, it shows like a new window. It's chart editor. You right click that chart, and then you click the show labels.
Data labels. Yes.
Show data labels, and then you close that, and bang, you have the exact number. So you don't have to look at the chart and feel like this is like 5.47. You don't have to guess it. It's there.
Okay, all good for this?
But could we please analyze it in terms of what this chart is telling us?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Each
okay, so if you go,
yeah, well, go on, Yara. That's fine.
Okay, if you go into your questionnaire, you'll notice that all these questions are a scale, and that they're asking you to rate different things from not important at all to extremely important. So it's a scale from 1 to 7. So what this table shows us is the average answer for each question, depending on the gender. So for the first question, which is please rate how important price is as a factor when you decide to purchase your groceries online. On average, men answered 5.47. So it is rather, so it's rather important for them. Price is rather important for them. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. And as I can see, the answers are pretty homogeneous, are pretty the same for men, for male and female. So in conclusion, maybe we could write something like,
it's not much different. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much difference. Maybe a little bit more different in regarding question number 5.
And number 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay.
Exactly.
But it's also important. I think the whole point of Martin and Yara too, actually, explaining the, changing the questions into, making them into different, recoding the questions, is so that when you do this, when you do your graphs, you don't end up with a mean, and also understanding the standard deviation, which is wrong, because what he did over here, if you look over here, he did question 3.1 to question 3.5, and they all are the same, from not important to extremely important, not important, extremely important. This might not be the case with the, with your dissertation or anything else. You might have to have extremely important, not important, not important, extremely important, and that messes up your mean.
Yeah.
So in that case is you'd recode it and then add it to this graph.
100%. So always make sure that when you have scales, because don't forget Martin and what was the other professor's name? Vita, both mentioned that it's important in your questionnaire to alternate sometimes between the scales so that people don't just respond automatically. So you're gonna have questions that go from positive to negative and then negative to positive. So when you're analyzing them, make sure to recode them so that you can actually compare them. Otherwise, you won't be able to compare them properly.
And this is also when you bring back this standard deviation. yes, 5.47 sounds great for men, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is exactly the average of all the question, the answers. With 5.47, it probably is that it is like quite important. But if the mean, we're somehow closer to the middle, then you can kind of guess that your standard deviation being really high means that the answers are all over the place. Meaning that sometimes you have a graph, and that's great. You can analyze the graph. But maybe before that or after that, you may have to look at standard deviation from that question and say, oh, but the standard deviation is really high. So yes, despite the fact that yes, my mean says that this is the average question of everyone, in reality, the answers were all over the place. This is just the average between, because people chose two extremes, or people chose, middle and just extreme, which puts you at this 5 rather than, just 7 or just 3, let's say. So then, you need to discuss that as well, this is the most important part. This is why I think Martin said everything about standard deviation and all this stuff beforehand. So when you make that graph, when you do all that stuff yourself at one point, you do have in mind that, you have to recode it, and you have to look at the standard deviation when you look at it, so that you're not just talking shit, essentially.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Casper. By the way, does any of you wants to work in the field of marketing research?
Oh God, no.
I really hope I don't. I hope it doesn't come to
You
that.
haven't worked in marketing research?
See, I don't
No.
know. I'll see by the end of this year, and then I'll start choosing. I chose marketing analytics as my the chosen sort of a course thing. So I guess we'll see.
Good
God
luck.
bless you, Casper.
No,
Oh God, good luck.
really good. Those two are really like emerging fields, especially the analytics, and it's so required now by the employers.
Yeah, it's really important.
Absolutely, it's really important. It's so good to have.
Thank you for making me feel better about myself about choosing it, but at the same time, I still feel I'm a bit screwed, but that's okay.
Casper,
I'm glad I've got this module, so like I understand it. But
Yeah.
it just seems like kind of a nerd thing. I don't know.
Very much so, right?
they call
No,
it
I'm sorry, Casper.
stepping out of your comfort zone. So don't regret it. You'll step out of your comfort zone and you're gonna learn some new things.
You have an advantage over all of us when it comes to finding a job.
Yeah.
I'm just
Thanks,
pissed because
guys.
I don't understand it.
Thanks, guys, for making me feel really much better about deciding to torture myself with more maths. It feels great.
Okay, another off-topic question just before we jump again into SPSS. Who chose the Tony's optional module? I think it's about.
So next is what Casper was interested in, which is grouping all of the multiple choice questions into one. So our first question in the questionnaire was, please select the grocery retailers where you've shopped in the last month. So it's a multiple choice, and you can select multiple answers. So with SPSS, you can group all of your questions into one. So the way you do it is, we go into analyze, and then you go into multiple response.
Yara,
and then
your
you
screen is.
Oh,
I cannot see anything.
okay, I'm sharing again. So annoying. Can you see my variable view now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go into analyze, you go into multiple response, and you click on define variable sets. You're welcome, Lucy. Don't worry about it. So you get to this, and these are all our multiple choice questions. Okay, so we're gonna want to click on all of them. You can easily just click on the first and then press on shift and go to the last one, and it will select all of them for you. And then you put them into your variable set. So they should all show up here. I'm gonna pause to make sure that everyone's up to date. Okay. Does everyone have them in this small square? Okay, so then we're just gonna rename the data set and we're gonna put retailers. Okay.
Do you have to change the counted value?
Do we have to change the counted
think that-
value?
I
I think, yeah, we're supposed to put it as 1.
Yeah, I think it's also because every
And you have
answer
to click,
is 1.
yeah, and then you have to click on add. The add thing will show up, and then you'll have the multiple response set here. So that means that SPSS is going to create this new set of data for you. And I think that's it. And then you click close. Okay, so what Martin mentioned before is that this isn't going to show up as a new variable in your variable view, but it is recorded in SPSS. So now to actually analyze it and see the different things, we're going to get a table that shows us everything in one. So we're going to go again into analyze, again into multiple response. And now you'll notice that you can actually click on frequencies and crosstabs. Previously, you couldn't because you didn't have a variable for multiple response. Now you do. So we're just going to click on frequencies. This is the response set. So SPSS recorded it. So you're going to put it here. We're not going to click on any of these. And then you're just going to click OK. And now let me stop sharing so you guys can actually see my table. And this is the result. So we have the table now. Now, does everyone understand the difference between percent and percent of cases, or should I go over that?
Just go over that just in case.
Okay. So the thing is, because it's a multiple choice question, one person can answer can take several responses. So I could have answered Aldi and Tesco and Sainsbury's. That means that the number of responses we have is much higher than the actual number of respondents. So you'll notice here at the beginning that it says that N, which is the number of respondents, is 98. If you scroll down to the bottom of our table, the total is 224. So we actually have 224 choices that were made when we actually only had 98 respondents. So there were many that actually chose more than one. So that's really the difference between the percent in responses and the percent in cases. The percent in responses literally just gives you the percentage for the 224. So out of 224 responses, 4% were Aldi. Yes? But out of 98 respondents, which is the cases, 9% answered Aldi. Does that make sense to everyone?
So N is the number that selected that option.
Yes.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
N in the responses column is the number of people that selected that retailer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so it's up to you when you're analyzing it, it's up to you to decide if you want to analyze by responses or by cases. To me, it makes more sense to analyze by case.
Yeah, okay, I think it finally made sense to me too. Okay, thanks, Yara. This the only thing is that
of course.
Would you say then percent? Because I think it's confusing because at the bottom, if you go to percent of cases, it shows you 200 and something %. Yeah. And
yeah.
I personally found that to be the most confusing part because how does that relate to my 98 people then? But then my question to you then, because I didn't understand that bit, how would we use the percent, just percent?
Percent as in this column?
Yeah, this
Percent
column.
responses?
How do you even use that one?
So, okay, so we have a total of 224 choices that were made.
Mhm.
So out of these 224, 19% were Sainsbury's.
See, I get that part, but the question is for me is like, I will never look at 224 responses, will I? Because my responses are back to limited to 98 really, like when it comes to people. I don't look at responses,
Exactly.
I look at people.
Exactly. But in other cases, I mean, in this case, we don't really need it, but I don't know if there are other cases where we have questions where actually the responses could be useful.
Yeah, okay,
I'm
so
not sure.
you're just as not sure as I am. Okay, I'll take that as a good sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because to me, it definitely makes more sense to look at the respondents, because at the end of the day, we want to know what the people are doing, not what the responses were. But I guess if you're Tesco, if you're giving this to Tesco, they might want to know that out of 224 supermarkets that were selected, 70 were Tesco, right?
Yeah.
It could be seen that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Once again, Yara, could you please give us an example of how we could interpret the data from this table?
Yes, of course. So in regards to percent for the responses, the way you could analyze it is out of 224 responses, 37.9 answered Morrison's. So it's the highest percentage. So the majority of responses were Morrison's. So that's for this percent. Now, if you look at percent of cases, which to me is more valuable to us, what you can say is that 86.7% of the respondents, so of the people who answered the survey, 86.7% of them selected Morrison's. So 86.7% of our respondents shop at Morrison's. That's basically what it means.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, Yara. I have a quick question. Could you
Yeah.
just go back over the first part of doing the tables, the part where you got the retailers part? Can you just go back over that process one more time, please?
Yeah, combining all of them into one?
Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
I think I made a mistake somewhere there, so my table is slightly off.
Sure, don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're gonna want to go into analyze. Sorry, this thing opened. You're gonna go into analyze, and you're gonna go into multiple response. It's more to the bottom of the thing, and you're gonna go into define variable sets. So you click on it, and then you're gonna scroll down a bit until you get to all the questions that you want, which are all Q0. You're gonna click on all of them. So click on the first one and then just press shift and select the last one. There should be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's around 9, I think. So you select all of them, and then you click on the little arrow, and so that they appear into the little square that says variables in set.
Okay.
Okay. And then right here where it says dichotomies, counted value, you're going to put 1, because the values for each question was 1. So basically, if you ticked on that, it represented 1. So you need to let SPSS know that it's going to count the values that represent 1.
Okay.
And then you're going to name your data set, your new variable. So I have named it retailers. I'm going to call this retailers 1.
Yeah.
And then you're going to click on add right here on the right. And it's going to appear under this little square, this little rectangle that says multiple response sets.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and then you just click close.
Yeah.
And when you click close, that's it. You're not going to be able to see it anywhere, but it's saved in SPSS. Now, to double check that it's saved, you can go again into analyze, again into multiple response, but this time go into frequencies, which is going to get us to the table.
I have that now. Okay.
Great, exactly. So now you have it and you just put it under table 4 and you click OK and it will give you the table.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I have
You're
it now.
welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or should I move on to the next step? Okay, so the next thing is the last thing on SPSS that we did, which is again crosstabs, but with the multiple response. Was it with multiple response? Let me just check the slides. Yeah, again with multiple response. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to go into analyze. Again, we're going to go under multiple response, and this time we're going to choose crosstabs.
Sorry, again, your screen is not moving. Oh, okay, it appeared.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it wasn't showing nothing on my screen. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so let me just check what we're okay, so we're checking retailer visits by gender. So we're gonna put our retailers, the data set that we just created for the multiple responses. We're gonna put it, I think Martin put it under columns. You can put it under whatever you want. And then we're gonna take gender, which is it's our 7.1. You're gonna take that and you're gonna put it in your rows. Now, don't forget that we need to tell SPSS which percentage to follow. And as Casper mentioned before, it's always the people. The people are always our independent variable. So, which is our 7.1, so which is our row. So you're gonna make sure that the percentages follow the row. And then also you can ask SPSS to give you the percentages based on the cases or the responses. Now, Martin clicked on responses, but I prefer cases, so I'm gonna keep it on cases. You guys can choose whatever you want. And then you click OK. And then I think we need to define the range because for our variable of demographics, we had 2. We had male or female, so we had 1 and 2. So we need to tell SPSS that the minimum range is 1 and that the maximum range is 2. So we do that, and then we click on continue. And that should be it. Did everyone do that? Can we click OK? Okay. You click on OK. Can everyone see my table? Yay. Okay. Just gonna double check that it's the right. Oh, it's not gonna be the right ones because Martin has it by responses. But what it should give you is male and female here. And then for each grocery store, you're going to be able to see how many people chose it. So it's going to tell you, for me at least, because I chose cases, not respondents, it basically tells me that 1 male out of the 98 chose Aldi. And that's basically what it is. So what you can, do you guys want me to, actually, no, I'm gonna see if one of you can analyze the table. I don't want to analyze everything and just give you the answers.
Just give us a minute to analyze. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, go through it, look at the table, and let's see if anyone can.
I was going to say that women prefer Tesco and Morrison's, Well, actually, what's more telling is that there's a lot more female respondents than male.
Yeah.
And yeah, so actually, this is a better example. So Sainsbury's, a lot more women go to Sainsbury's than men. But if you compare all the men together, then they're preferred to Tesco Morrison's, and it's the same for women. So proportionally, they're both like Tesco Morrison's, but the outlier is Sainsbury's, which has way more women than men go to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good.
I have a question to you guys. Can SPSS tell us what was the first choice a respondent? For example, if there are multiple choice, if there is a multiple choice question, and I choose, for example, Lidl first, and then Aldi, and then Tesco, can SPSS tell us that I chose Lidl first as my first choice or not?
I don't think so, because theoretically, when you're doing the survey on Qualtrics, let's say, you wouldn't even be able to tell. I mean, there isn't that option of figuring out what they clicked on first.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted that option, you'd have to do the questionnaire differently. So you'd have to ask people
Yeah.
to prioritize their supermarkets as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, a question I wanted to ask Martin, I think I'm going to ask it tomorrow in the seminar, but Casper, if you know how, please tell me. If there's any way we can find out which people answered several questions, picked several.
Ooh. I don't know. That's a good question. Ask Martin tomorrow, because I bet he's gonna go with something like recoding it and making sure that you see only one as a yes, and then seeing what gender and what people and so on and so on. But other than this, I don't know. There must be, probably is some sort of a way.
Yeah, there must be, but I mean, it's interesting to see how many people actually go to one grocery store versus 2 versus 3 versus 5 or whatever. But yeah, I think I'll ask him tomorrow.
What I find interesting about it is how easy you can manipulate with data. For example, if the client is searching for something, you could just show the numbers he or she needs it. But I was wondering how many marketing researchers are out there doing honestly their jobs, not being influenced by data and reflecting what actually the numbers are telling, because it's quite easy to fall in the trap of trying to say something, I want to prove that point, that is why I'm using these numbers.
I mean, this is exactly what the standard deviation bit is for. If you want to look at something and see that this is the average, you can just pretend this is. And you don't have to tell anyone else that out of 2,000 surveys, actually only 50 of them answered exactly on the average, but everyone else was in the extremes. You can manipulate this data quite easily, I think. And I think this is what is being shown to us more and more with every single lecture. But I think what is important really here to understand is that you might have data that's irrelevant to you by a complete accident. The way, for example, we had that mean, which was 3, well, it's supposed to be 5, right? Because it was just that. You phrasing your questions in a different way, what Martin said himself, that standard deviation is going to be different between them because some people didn't notice this change. I think that is the main sort of a bit over here, that you need to realize that your respondents are, well, let's base them on like quite stupid people. You have to think of them as the most simple people ever, that they don't even read with comprehension of any kind. I think that's the main takeaway for me, at least, from this, is like when checking on a survey, you need to make sure there's been thousands of respondents, otherwise it's worthless. Like this one, for example, you have mainly female answers. Like, does it describe really men that they don't shop in Aldi because there's just one guy out of 15?
Exactly.
That doesn't tell you anything. But the respondents,
Exactly.
there was 98 of them. So, you know, but that doesn't mean anything. Out of 15 men, one went to Aldi. Come on. Out of 100, it won't be 10. It could be, you know, many more. Yeah, so there's that. That's my takeaway from this.
Yeah. And I think going back to you, Anna, a little bit, it really depends on ethics and ethically what the researcher, I mean, they have to have a lot of ethics to not like lie and play around with the numbers and only include what's relevant to them. So I think a lot goes into that as well.
Sure, totally agree.
One
right,
question.
guys. Yeah.
Quickly, Yara, when setting the range on the multiple responses, you said between 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, because our variable of
Male-female.
demographic for the male female, it was 1 and 2.
Yeah, okay. I just need to make sure that that was it. Okay, now who's willing to stay and quickly check that task for I'm gonna